This is a story of the building and construction of the Santa Maria in Algonac, Michigan. The Santa Maria was built in 1933 in Algonac, Michigan, located on the St. Clair River, home of Chris Craft. The boat looks pretty big here, sitting outside here. Tell me about the materials you used and where you got them and what was available in Algonac as far as boat building materials.
Well, behind Algonac, there was a lot of old oak trees, and there was a relative of my wife's had quite a few oak trees, and we had them cut up into heavy timber to make the keel and the ribs for that boat.
Now, did you use oak throughout or for the framing? And
Yes, of course the molds that we bent the ribs around were made up of pine, but we did bend ribs in there that we used as a permanent rib structure for the boat. There's the best quality material in the country, the Algonac oak that's been grown there for years. They used that in the shipyards when they built the sailing ships that plied the lakes in the 1800s.
well, approximately now, how long did it take to rough in the hull as we see it?
Well, it's pretty hard to say just how long it took to bring it up to this point, but it probably was about the first year.
Okay.
It did take more than a year to build this boat because it was a spare time job and a spare money project also, so it didn't go too fast.
But who designed the boat and how many of you worked on it on a regular basis?
Well, just Dad and I worked on it on a regular basis. Dad drew up sketches and preliminary plans for the boat, and we really didn't have full-size drawings of the boat, but by setting up a few molds, like the front of the back cabin there, and behind the front cabin, we set the molds up there and then made a shape from them, and also the transom. It really worked out pretty good. If you're familiar with setting up a boat by eye and with a few molds and measurements that you can get together what you want, it's fairly easy to make the mold and shape the boat.
Well, even before you started to build it, then you had an idea what it was, the sizing and how big it was going to be. And
Oh yes, you have to have the beam of the boat, also the length, the materials you're going to use, and sketches of what the finished project should be.
now, did your dad have any background in building boats?
Well, he lived in Algonac most of his life, and he had a general idea what he wanted in this boat, and we went from those sketches. And as you say, his background, he never built a boat this big before, but with our combined efforts, we got it together.
Now, you and Grandpa at this time were working off and on at Chris Craft at the same time, right?
Yes, our major source of work was Chris Craft, but it was an off again, on again thing about this time, from 33 to 36. Of course, things started to pick up in 1936, so we were working steady at the plant when the boat was launched.
You told me some of your brothers worked on during the time that you were putting the hull together. Who was all involved with this?
Well, George helped a little bit, and Andy and Art, but not too much. They weren't too much enthused about the project, let's put it that way. And but toward the end, then they start helping a little more.
Now, what was you doing? Just taking your spare money and putting into this, or?
Yes, that's about the way it had to go, because we didn't have too much extra money, so we would buy material as we went along, and then when we had the spare time to work on the boat, we used up our capital.
I'm sure the family here, by the looks of the picture here with the gals around her, everybody was looking forward to having it for a family houseboat, eh?
It was a pretty good idea. We promoted this idea that it would be a a boat that the family could take off on the weekend and enjoy the flats and cruise around. Quite an opportunity to see what was going on down around Lake St. Clair, and we really enjoyed the Sunday afternoons on that boat.
And this looks like the city park here, after you got the hull roughed in. Tell me about this here.
Well, this was the launching day, 1936, the day we was looking forward to.
Now, looks like you had a big crowd here in Algonac. Was everybody anticipating this launching?
No, I think a lot of them, it was kind of sprung on them. It was a new thing, but as the day wore on, they gathered around.
It was a boat almost 50 foot long. Now, how did you get it from the house over to the launch site?
Well, we took a couple of house mover skids and put under it, and on top of them we made a cradle. And we got the town grader to pull the thing.
You down there in the water there, was there a lot of blocking to grab up? And
Oh yeah, it's floating around all over the place. But we were glad to see her floating so nice and high.
well, the boat looks good. You had her all painted up and all set to go, eh?
All set to be towed to a place of putting a mast in her.
Did you have the auxiliary power in her at this time, or did you have to tow her to her berth? Or
No, we had to tow her to a place to put the controls on her. That the bridle out in front is probably the towing bridle that we used to take her to her place of mooring.
now, where'd you take her? Down to Point of Shane?
Yeah, it was down by Chris Craft Plant on Point de Shane, the end of Eckfield Drive.
Got her moored on down by Eckfield here by Chris Craft. What kind of materials and where did you get the mast for this boat?
Oh, we went cruising around back of Rochester, Michigan, and we spied some pine trees that would look to be about right for the job, so we bought them from the farmer and took a trailer over there and picked them up.
And I see the spars are on her in this picture here, and all the rigging's on it now. Who was the sailing buff that knew how to do all the rigging and put all the lines on her correctly?
Well, as I've told you before, son, Dad was a pretty handy man, and he made a lot of that rigging up at home, and he took it down at the boat and assembled it down at the boat. Of course, the ratlins that go across there to walk up, they were put on after those cables were.
I see a lot of fancy spindles and woodwork on the deck there now. How'd you do all this stuff?
Well, we decided on a pattern for those spindles, and we had one of the local boys turn them down for us, and they turned out pretty good.
Now I see the steering wheel there with the captain's chair, and I see some auxiliary, looks like auxiliary motor gear shifter there, and you had the auxiliary power in her. They're all ready to go, eh?
She's all ready to sail that day.
And the capstan is all set up there for the anchor there, but I see a small boat. Where did that come from?
Well, that's one we built up so as we could have a boat to use if we went down swimming or we wanted to anchor the boat out and go ashore.
Now I noticed through the doors there looks like, what kind of rooms did you have inside here?
Oh, they were just small rooms with a upper and lower bunk on each side.
Play table there, Dad, and looks like some berths in the back. Now how many could comfortably sleep on this?
Well, we had a couple beds there. A couple could sleep fairly comfortable in the back end of the back staterooms. And forward of the stateroom there is our family table that we sat around for our discussions and also for meals if we went away on an afternoon and stayed for the Sunday evening meal.
Like me, about 25, but I know it's you. Tell me what you're brewing up there.
That's a imaginary dinner for an imaginary crew.
I notice there's a lot of fancy windows on there, or portholes, or whatever you want to call them. Now, did you make up all the trim and stuff by yourself on this?
Yeah, it was all handmade. Took a lot of time to make up those parts.
And I notice, now did it take you as long to finish doing all the trim and set all the rooms up and stuff as it did to make the hull itself?
I don't hardly remember that, son, but I made the doors and the trim that went around the, the parts of the cabins and everything, and set the bunks up. But it was all part of the job.
A lot of built-in furniture and stuff there.
Yes, we had to have lockers in there, and we used the lockers for extra beds by throwing mattress over 'em. The door at the right is to the head there, looking forward.
So it had all the modern conveniences you could ask for at the time, eh?
At the time, yeah, that's right. We had everything that was convenient as possible.
This picture here, I see all kinds of insignias on her, and she got sails hanging on her bow there, and she looks real fancy. Now, did you take it out on every weekend, or whenever you had the time?
Oh, we took her out quite a few evenings after work in the summertime. There was longer evenings then, and we went out nearly every weekend. If I didn't go out, my dad went out with a party of his. So the boat was on the river quite a bit of the time, but this picture is just at her mooring.
Now, Dad, there's Grandpa Cup there sitting at the helm. He looks like he's ready to sail the seven seas. Where's he off to this day?
Well, I really don't know where he's off to, but he sure had a look of enthusiasm in his face there, that it's going to be a good trip that day.
Did the boat in 33 and had her in the water about 36. Now, what year would this be? And I see all kinds of fancy furniture back there. Is this stuff you made or just brought on the boat?
Well, most of those are folding chairs, lawn chairs, and one thing or another. We like to have light stuff aboard so as we could stow it away quick after a trip on a Sunday afternoon.
And if you went out for the day, how far could you go if you had a good wind, or what was your area you could take in if you wanted?
Oh, Sunday afternoon we'd go about 10 or 12 miles down the river out in the Lake St. Clair, and possibly anchor a while, and then if the wind was fair coming back, we would put the sails up, sail up the river to Algonac, furl the sails, and run by power back to our mooring.
There's Grandpa and Grandma Cup there, Dad. Who's that with them, do you know, for that day?
Well, I think they took some of their friends out that day, and I just don't recall who those people are.
Now, did Grandma Cup like to go out on the boat as much as Grandpa did?
No, not as much, but when he went, she wanted to go too.
Dad, there's Grandpa Cup at the helm there again there. Where do you think he's going to dream about going today?
I think he's wondering whether the motor's going to start by the looks on his face.
Well, Grandpa there, he's leaning off to the port side there, and looks like he's got a whole gang of characters. And I remember you telling me a few times that he took parties out on Sunday. What would be involved with that?
Well, if like the Rotary Club or some of his shop friends would want to go for a ride, why, he would arrange a party and they'd take off and spend a few hours on the boat. Could have been an evening, could have been a Sunday or Saturday.
Got all her sails here, and looks like the wind's taking her for a good ride here. How fast would it go with the sails up on it?
Well, going again that current from Lake St. Clair up to Algonac, it wouldn't go very fast with a light wind like that. It'd probably be doing about 3 or 4 miles an hour.
That was kind of nice for a Sunday afternoon, I suppose.
Oh yeah, you could relax there. No problems. Just watch the scenery.
Dad, this is a Stub A. Cartwright film taken about 1939. You want to narrate through some of this and tell us where we're going on the trip here?
Well, we'll see when the picture comes on, just what's coming up next.
Were you on this trip when they made this film?
No, I was working in Detroit on some minesweepers at that time. That was just prior to World War II.
Now this is on Eckfield Lane by Chris Craft.
No, that's out on Point de Chene.
Oh, Point de Chene, okay.
The boat was hauled out of the water that winter because the planking were starting to become loose. When we were building the boat, some of the oak plank dried out, and it put quite a strain on the screws that we fastened the bottom on with when the plank swelled up. So we thought it'd be a good idea to haul the boat out that fall and refasten the plank to the ribs.
Well, would you normally take the boat out every winter anyways?
Oh no, the boat sat in the water a few winters, but in later years I pulled it out at the boat shop on a marine railway car.
Well, then prior to that, you would leave it in the water even with the ice in the winter then, eh?
Oh yeah. She was in the water quite a few winters. Fact is, that was probably the only winter we hauled it out. Because I can't say we hauled it out. I wasn't there at the time when the boat was hauled out on the point there. There's Cartwright's new wrecker that year. He was quite proud of it, and it was an opportunity to see how much pull it had to pull that big skiff off the waves and down the water. He didn't have to pull her much right there, did he?
Now did that, when you pulled her off the skids, did you have rollers or did you have it all greased or what?
No, we used tallow to grease the skids there. That tallow seems to have a good body. They'll slip almost like on ice on the skids that's greased up with tallow.
Now who's gathering up all the block in here?
That's my dad right there.
That's Choppy, eh?
That's Choppy. Or I don't know who those fellows were there. I think one of them was Brother Andy, though.
Well, now we got a good shot of the Santa Maria sitting there, and I see there's a boat alongside. Cartwright must have been able to get a lot of people to do anything, eh? If he wanted to film stuff?
No, it was mostly my dad. He had a lot of friends that was always ready to give us a hand. See, he was a foreman over to Cuthbertson. He had a lot of fellas working for him, and he took them out for quite a few boat rides, and they were probably glad to reciprocate.
So she's running under her own power there.
Oh yeah, she's running by motor there now, but they're preparing to hoist the sail there.
That's your brother Jack there, eh?
That's Brother Jack there.
You got to see the whole crew there trying to hoist the sails up.
Yeah, that's our little back lateen sail. There he's hauling up the foresail there. It's quite a pull for one skinny boy.
So you didn't have any deck winches to hoist the sails with at that time, eh?
No, because that main yard was up there permanent. We just had some snaps and hook on that cable there, and we got her ready to come out. We had some lines down the spar there, and when we pull the lines down, it pull those sails right out the end of the yard arms.
Now, if you had a good wind, how fast would she sail by herself without auxiliary power?
Oh, probably 8-9 miles an hour. It took quite a wind to push that boat that fast, so.
That's with all the sails up, eh?
Yeah, with all the sails and a good wind. Very seldom in the summertime do we get a heavy wind like you see in this next picture, though.
Yeah, that looks like a late fall kind of gale there on the river and lake.
No, it really isn't. Sometimes in the summertime you get a pretty good wind like that. We haven't in the last few years, but that particular day it looks like we had about a 25-mile-an-hour wind. There's Dad with a few passengers aboard. There's Jack alongside of him, and Aunt Jen there. That Stub Cartwright's mother was my wife's aunt.
Well, he looks like he's ready to sail to Spain.
Sail someplace, all right.
Now, when you took the boat out for the day, would you go real early in the morning and go all day, or?
Nah, we took our time. There's no point in getting up real early in the morning to sail around. We got all the sailing we wanted from about 9 o'clock in the morning till sundown. There's a picture of Mother.
That Grandma Cup?
Yeah, that's Grandma Cuthbertson. And Aunt Jen, they called her.
Now, do you recognize any of these areas on the film where we're at?
Oh yeah, they're going down the Snibora. On the right side, there's some of the marsh. That's the old Del Traver place there.
That looks like quite a big boat, Dad. Do you ever work on anything like that?
Oh yeah, that boat was in the Fishers when I worked down there. We put a couple of new rudders in her. She had a single rudder, and then by putting 2 rudders in it, they expected it to steer a lot better. Now this is going down the Clinton River to where the road goes across there. They got that overpass there, but they didn't go under that bridge. It was too low. They just turned around there. That's make them turn now. But now it's out on Strawberry Island. That's the cut that goes out into the North Channel there.
Now, it looks like the Santa Maria was quite maneuverable, even in narrow passages.
Well, if it wasn't, we couldn't make a full turn, we'd get her bow up in the mud someplace and let her swing around. That's Strawberry Island there again.
How about those lanterns on the side? Were those authentic kerosene like Christopher Columbus had, or what?
I don't think Christopher Columbus had anything but torches on his ship.
Or
of course, he didn't expect to run into any other ships out there, you know. But they hooked those lamps up with electric lights, and of course you have to on the river here, you know. It's a regulation.
Now, where's this at?
I think that's in Clinton River, too.
You recognize any of the kids there?
I think that's Aunt Jen's granddaughters there.
That looks like a lively group to have on the boat for the day.
You had to watch them. They didn't get climbing the ladders and fall overboard or down in the main deck there.
And when you were going up or down the river, would a lot of the small boats, like speedboats and stuff, come buzzing by you to see what kind of ship this was?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I recall one fella come up behind us at the time, and he thought he was going to swim as fast as we were going, but we left him way behind in just short order.
Okay, we're going up the Snycardy here, right?
Yeah, that's the Snycardy going into Canada.
All right, that's over by Wallaceburg, eh?
Well, it's about 6-7 miles from Wallaceburg yet, but
No.
just entering there, and Walpole Island's on the right there, and it's a marsh across there.
Now, would freighters go up this channel to Wallaceburg?
Believe it or not, when we first put the Santa Maria in, there were package freighters going into Wallaceburg. Small ones, but nevertheless they were still steamboats carrying package freight.
That's the whole family there, eh? Your dad on the right?
This Dad and Mother and Brother Art. Jack steering. There's Margaret and her husband Jim.
Well, looks like a nice sunset. Must have had a good cruise that day. The water sure looks calm. But Dad, looks like this is a family portrait of Captain Cuthbertson here. What can you tell me about this picture?
So that was Dad in about 1939. I think that was the year he went down to New York to change some motors in the commuter Chris Craft for before Chris Kraft plant.
Dad, how did, and when did Grandpa come here to Algonac and what for?
Oh, my dad was born in Algonac, and he grew up in Algonac, and he worked for Chris Smith when he was a young boy.
And was he building boats or doing odd jobs or what?
Well, I think he was doing odd jobs around the factory there. That's when it was on Front Street, and probably running boats. They took passengers down to the flats.
So he got himself right in on the ground floor, so to speak, with the Smiths there, right?
Well, nearly all the boys around Algonac growing up along the river, you know, they learned boats.
All right, then when did you come in on the picture starting at Chris Kraft?
Well, that's after we moved back from Canada. We were up in Canada for 6 years. And in 1924, we decided to come back to Algonac and live, and that's when we started to work at the plant there.
Oh, here in Algonac then, eh?
That's right, in Algonac.
Where's this at? That's Grandpa and Grandpa Cup there.
I think it's on one of the trips we made on the Santa Maria. It looks to me like it's over in Wallaceburg or Chatham, someplace that they went on a trip.
Hey, that's you and the Grandpa there and the whole gang. Who do we got here? Left or right?
On the left, looking at the picture, is George, me, Bob, Dad, Andy, Art, and Jack.
That's a good picture, you guys.
Now this is some more of the family. There's Doris and Jack, and this lady in there alongside of Dad. I'm not familiar with her. And my sister Margaret and her husband Jim. And the two kids down there in the inner tubes are Dave and John Mackey. Yeah, this is my wife Addie and a friend of Andy's. The day we went down to Put-in-Bay. This picture was taken at the dock there alongside of a Chris Kraft cruiser. Now this is a trip we took to Put-in-Bay, one of our first long trips on the boat. We went down there for about a week, and along that dock there, we had the Santa Maria tide. The storm come up out of the northeast, and it gave us quite a pummeling around on the dock. We had to put out anchors out on the side to hold her off the dock to keep her from being crushed.
What year was this, Dad?
Be 1937.
Okay.
Now this is Brother Jack standing on the front deck, coiling up a rope and posing for a picture. It's one of the best pictures we've got of Brother Jack. This is Dad and Sister Margaret at Old Homestead posing for a picture. I'm not sure who these people are. I can't hardly say. It looks like my sister Margaret, and yet I don't know. This is Margaret on the back deck of the Santa Maria, having a nice trip, I hope. Yeah, this little girl, I think it's Carolyn Hawker. That's my sister's daughter, sitting on the back deck of the Santa Maria, just before you go up to the second deck. That's Mother and some friends of theirs back on the front porch of the house over on Columbia Street. It looks like Mary, George's wife, but I'm not sure that's George or not.
Now, Dad, Grandpa Cup here had an association with Chris Kraft for a lot of years. What's this picture about?
That was about 1929, and they built about 50 of those commuter cruisers, 38 feet long, and they were having some motor trouble with those boats, and Dad was sent down to New York to change the motors, put different motors in them.
What kind of motors they use at the time?
Those were their own manufacturer, the A180s, I believe they called them.
What was the problem with the motors?
I really don't know. I wasn't too interested in what their motor problems were in those days.
Do you know who that guy is with Grandpa? Or?
No, I don't really know. This is a picture of Mary, George Cuthbertson's wife, when she was taking a trip one day. I think there were just two or three couples on the boat that day, so I wasn't on that trip. Mother's in the background, sitting there on the ladder there.
In June of 1990, dear old Dad surprised us all by becoming a celebrity in popular science. In June of 1990, one of our customers was an advertising agent. He asked Dad about appearing in a commercial for overalls. So here's Dad in the June 1990 issue doing an actor portrayal for an advertising agency, and this photo is taken at the boat shop. Well, Dad, that was quite an adventure of history here for the family today. I sure enjoyed this.
It's kind of nice to be able to get together and look these old pictures over, Mother and Dad, and some of the accomplishments of our past. And I'm hoping that the family in the future, looking at these pictures, to remember they did have a great-grandfather and great-grandmother, Cuthbertson, and a father and mother, Tom and Addie Cuthbertson. So if there's an opportunity to look at your folks, try to remember them, it's a good way to do it.
Okay, Dad, now this is a picture. In the middle, this guy standing here is Andrew Cuthbertson, which is your dad, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's Dad when he was probably about 20 years old.
Okay. Now his dad was named Hugh?
That's right.
Okay, now what did he do?
Well, he ran a salvage operation there. He had a scow, a barge, and equipment to hoist boats out of the water and salvage ships and one thing and another.
Now, in that day, he was a hard hat diver then?
Yes, I saw him dive once off Algonac. He went down and picked up a speedboat that had sunk out from Algonac there.
Okay, now about what year would that be?
Oh, it must have been, I was about 5 years old at the time, and probably 75 years ago, 77, something like that. It goes back around 1910 or 11 or 12, something like that.
Okay. All right, now his dad was named Tom.
Grandfather's name was Tom, yeah.
Okay, grandfather's name was Tom. All right, now your great-grandfather was named Hugh, correct?
No, you're getting it mixed up. My great-grandfather's name was Tom. His
Oh, okay.
wife's name was Mary.
Okay. All right, so then you got Hugh, which is your great-grandfather, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now what did he do?
My great-grandfather had a fishing ground up North Algonac. That's one of those fishing places where they put the nets out in the river, and they put a horse on a capstan, and as the nets would wind around this capstan, the horse turning it, they'd pull the nets in and get their fish out of the nets.
Okay, so he worked this local area here then?
Oh yeah, right up where Captain's 2 is now.
Okay, so this is your dad, Andrew Sr. Now, if we go clockwise here, up in the upper right-hand corner, who's this? A young
That's
guy?
the youngest brother, Al. And then below him is his sister, Molly. And then his mother, right off of Dad's left shoulder there, in front of him. And then going around a little further is Uncle Lawrence. That's the oldest boy. And that's his sister, Essie, there. And his brother, Jack. Brother Jack, he got killed while we were up in Canada there. He was riding a motorcycle. He broadsided a car, and that was the end of Jack there.
Okay, Dad, that's Andrew there in the center. All right, now his dad was Hugh. All right, now where was he born?
Hugh was born down in one of the islands down around Lake Erie.
Okay.
In the Detroit River.
Okay, do you remember his wife's name?
This is his wife here, Mary.
Okay, down in the lower right-hand corner.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now your father's grandfather's was named Tom.
That's right.
Okay, now where was he born and who is he married to?
Well, he was married to a woman by the name of Mary, too. I was out in the cemetery one day, and I had never heard much about who my ancestors were, and I saw these two little gravestones there, Thomas Cuthbertson and Mary. And I was inquiring from Dad why I found out it was his grandfather, my great-grandfather and grandmother.
Where was the cemetery at?
That's Oaklawn in Algonac.
Okay. All right, now where was your great-grandfather Tom born?
As far as we know, he came from Scotland, in the Ayrshire part of Scotland.
Okay, now as far as you know, did he migrate here by himself or did he come with his wife?
I don't know if he married here or not, but there were other brothers besides my grandfather.
Okay.
One was John Cuthbertson, but I never knew him. He had left Algonac before my time of remembering who the family were. But this part of the family I remember pretty well. I knew them all.
Okay, well, Dad, that looks like a good brief history here of your dad and your grandfather Hugh and your great-grandfather Tom.
Yeah, after seeing this picture, my sister Margaret had it, I thought it'd be a good picture to put with these other pictures so whoever sees it know what another generation back looked like and who they were. My grandmother there, she was a Levine from Marine City, and she's buried in Port Yorn.
Now, Uncle Allie is the only one I ever knew. Was Uncle Allie the only one who lived around here most of his life?
Yes, Lawrence lived in Mont Clemens the later part of his life. He lived in Detroit when we were living there, probably around 1918. And then in later years he come up to and lived in Mont Clemens. And the girls lived in Detroit most of the time.
Well, Dad, this has been a good oral history here on the relatives that I would never know, so it's been a good show here.